go live. And what I want to talk about in this live stream, and feel free to join in, leave your comments, let me know what you think, is this idea of the sunk costs fallacy. Now, you probably haven't heard of this before. I only heard of it recently because I can't remember how it came up. I think I was watching a podcast about relationships topics, and then the guy mentioned the sunk costs fallacy, and then I Googled it. And then I also saw other videos on YouTube. And what it really means is it's a cognitive bias that clouds our judgment and prevents us from making decisions that serve us. It's basically this idea that if you've invested time, energy, money, and effort into something, then you shouldn't give up on it no matter what, because the person feels that the costs that they've invested are higher than the they would lose if they pulled out. So it's the same as, like if someone's gambling and they've put so much money in and they keep putting more and more money in and they keep saying, I can't stop now because I've lost too much money. Instead of them saying, I need to stop now because I've lost too much money, they say, I need to recoup the money I've lost. And it's the same with the sunk costs fallacy. So I'm just going to talk about a few different concepts of it, and you'll probably be able to relate to this because I can relate to it, and I've also been putting this into practice myself. So the first concept is investing in something or someone and feeling that you would lose out or you would waste something if you quit. So it's, thanks for joining whoever's joined. So it's the idea of that people say, well, if I've put so much time into this job, I've got my qualifications, I've spent years studying for it, I'm now the doctor or the lawyer that I wanted to be. If I quit now, then it would have wasted all of my education, or it would be a disappointment, to the past people who have been kind of supporting me. The same as with a relationship, people will stay in a relationship, and even though it's not working, they will say, instead of them saying it's not working, I've already spent 10 years in this relationship and I'm not happy. They will say, because I've spent 10 years in the relationship, walking away now would be a waste, so we might as well keep trying. And there's nothing wrong with trying to make things right, in any situation. Sunk costs fallacy isn't saying that you should just, something doesn't work and then straight away you quit. But what it's saying is that people spend too much time and put too much energy on the fact that they've invested in something, but they're not focusing on what's going on right now. It doesn't matter how much time and effort you've invested in something. If you're unhappy or if it's not working, they're saying you should quit earlier rather than later. What do you guys think? Because this is something, hi, I'm Ishal. This is something I really stand by. Like, I'm someone that if something is not working, I'd rather just say, do you know what? I'd rather just quit now rather than hanging on in there and wasting more time. And I've actually done that recently. I was seeing someone. This is another story. It's on my personal YouTube called Marianne Living Life, my love journey. And everyone knows at the moment relationships are just, no one really wants a relationship, or not many people do. So when you start off dating someone, it's not necessarily always about this big red flag, or it's not always about, sometimes you just feel it and you know it in your heart that this is not the right person for you. And my philosophy has always been, I want the best for everyone, and I'm not just saying this like in a cheesy way. If someone isn't the right person for me, then I don't see it as like I think it's selfish for me to continue to be in a relationship with someone, preventing them from finding their one and me from mine. But back to what we're saying about the sunk cost fallacy, it does link, but not quite. So it's staying in situations like jobs, relationships, because you fear of making the wrong decision if you leave. So if someone's unhappy sometimes, rather than them, hi Cheryl, rather than them saying, I really hate this job. This job is making me unhappy. Every day I have to go to work, I feel stressed, I feel unhappy. They will say, well, if I quit this job, then what if I don't get another job? Or if I quit this relationship, what if I don't find anyone else? What if it takes me so they're focused on fear. They're not saying, well, regardless of what happens in the future, if I hate my job, then I hate my job, so cut my losses and leave that job. If I hate this relationship, then it's not working, then I need to leave that relationship. But the fear is the thing that is keeping them there. So that's why people will rather stay in a thing that better the devil situation where it's bad, but it's not bad enough for them to leave. So that's one of the concepts. And it's saying that if you pay less attention to the investment you've made in something, it says that, because if people feel that the time, effort and energy already invested would be wasted if they quit, And this is a major one for couples, I'd say, but also for, with jobs as well, but this comes up more for couples. If you've been in a marriage and you've been through thick and thin with that person, you know, maybe you met them when you were teenagers, maybe everyone said it wouldn't work, maybe it's a relationship that was never accepted, you know, you've had to elope, you've been through kids together, you've been through everything together. The idea of then admitting to yourself that despite all of that, you still don't want to be in this relationship anymore, or despite that you've grown apart, or despite that you just feel sad. Many people will admit that to themselves secretly. They'll go to bed every night and they'll cry and they'll say, this is just, I don't want to be with this person. But to say that out loud and to actually then go through separation or divorce, majority of people won't do it. And it's because of sunk cost fallacy, because what they'll say is that, look at everything we've been through. Look at, if we quit now, then it means it's all been for nothing. And that's not true. This is a fallacy. It's a myth. You can go through so many things in life with someone or through an experience. You can have so many good experiences at work or with a person. It doesn't take away. Those things don't erase when you leave that person. I was saying this conversation to someone recently. I was saying that I dated someone in 2012. Look how long ago that was. And occasionally when I'm going to a certain location, or when something's happening, I have a memory of this person. It's got no attachment, no meaning. I'm not thinking, no regrets, no emotion, but I just think of him because of like that particular thing. There's nothing to it, but it doesn't mean that all the memories I had with him when I dated him in 2012 have disappeared. But at the same time, do I regret ending that relationship? No, I don't, because at that time it wasn't working, and I feel happy for whatever he's doing. I think what it's trying to say is stop putting too much attention in the investment you've made. Same as I've given that example of the gambler. The gambler will continuously be saying, oh, I've put £1,000 in now, so unless I get that 1,000 back, I've lost. Instead of them saying, I've put £1,000 in and I've lost 1,000, so I need to quit. This is the mentality of like lots of people. They're so focused on the investment they've made. Hi, I'm Phil Gamani. That they'll dismiss where they are right now. And if right where you are right now is not working, then that's what you need to put the focus on. So it talks about people not wanting to feel the pain of the loss and therefore unable to see any positives regarding the future. Or so this happens in relationships a lot. So someone will have a relationship and it will not be going well. So then they'll say, I'm not going to quit. What is it? Yeah. So not wanting to feel the pain. Yeah. So I don't want to end this relationship, because what if I then don't meet anyone else? Or what if I can't trust anyone because of what's happened? Or what if? So when people are doing the what ifs, unfortunately, they're stuck in the fear again. You know, they're saying, well, this isn't going to work, so I might as well just be unhappy. But you can never, ever just settle for being unhappy, regardless of what's going to happen. You don't, because you don't know, you can't predict what's going to happen. Why would you still settle for being unhappy? So that's the key thing to focus on. And I think I can see that my phone is getting a bit hot, so I hope it doesn't cut off. So here are some examples in real time. We've talked about staying in a relationship where you're unhappy or it's dysfunctional because you've been through a lot together. Staying in a job you hate because you've studied for it, you've been promoted, you're scared of like not getting your pension. Staying at the cinema or a concert when you're not enjoying it but because you've paid. That was a good example in the video I watched. So it said that like people are more likely, if they've bought a ticket, to stay because that they're losing something by leaving. So their thoughts will be, because I've bought the ticket now, I shouldn't leave. And the same as at the theatre. Most people will not leave the theatre even if the film they're watching is rubbish, because they'll say I've paid. So it's like they're thinking you've invested time, the money, but it's got no relevance, because if you're not enjoying the film, you're not enjoying the film. If you're not enjoying the concert, you're not enjoying the concert. So it's saying to be brave enough and courageous enough to quit. Leave the concert. What's going to happen if you leave the concert? Because your ticket's already bought. You know, but what's the point in sitting in a rubbish concert that you hate? You can't get that time back, is what it's trying to say. You can't get the time back even if you've paid. You can decide that you want a different experience. You can ignore sunk costs and not let them hold you back. So another example it was talking about is sending soldiers to war. So when people are talking about sending soldiers to war, when there's been a massive conflict where lots of soldiers have been killed, some of the times the justification will be, well, we can't let those dead soldiers be in vain, so we'll send more. But the more they keep sending, it's not going to replace the fact that the soldiers that have already died, you can't, there's no compensation for that. So then they're sending more soldiers in and then they die, then they're sending more and then they die. And so it's this constant thing where they're saying, well, that we have to keep fighting this war, like they did with like Vietnam and other wars, which they had no chance of winning. But it was basically, they said, well, we've invested now, and if we just walk away, we're not paying tribute to the people that have died, or if we're not giving it enough, we're not giving it enough. But sometimes you have to know when enough is enough. Sometimes in any situation, you have to weigh up the costs you've already lost, and you have to say, well, I'm not going to get those costs back, but if I keep going like this, I'm just going to increase the losses. And it's just such a powerful way of thinking that, like, I'm so glad I picked up on this sunk cost fallacy, because it can apply to lots of areas of our life. You know, how many times have we just said we're too scared to walk away from this? How many times have we said we're just going to keep trying, but we're getting nowhere? So that's really what sunk costs fallacy is. It's about weighing everything up, and it's about cutting your losses earlier, but also recognizing that you're not going to recoup the losses that you've already made, but being okay with that, accepting that. So let me know what you guys think. Thanks for joining, everyone. I can see Nepalak and other people. Sorry, I can't see very well who's online, but I really appreciate you for joining me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all again next Monday. Have a great week. Bye.